Alexis, welcome to Podcastina. Oh. We're not talking to you. Oh, because your name is so close to...
Probably.
Okay. Let's try it. Let's try that again. Alexis, welcome to Podcastina.
Do you have blooper reels? Because this should definitely
At this point, I'm going to leave it in. I'll just quickly explain, everybody. This I also need to adjust this. Oh, my goodness. Okay. For everyone who's like, what in the hell was that? I cannot say my guest's name without the Alexa responding to me. Couldn't have perceived that issue, but of course. Well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. I was so excited to come across your stuff. I myself dipped my toes in, if I could call it woo-woo, a little bit.
Sure.
But I think it's so fun to like live with a belief in magic and to try to learn as much about myself through that lens as I can. And so I'm excited to talk to you. And that way you can share with others what all you know and how everybody can get a little more tapped in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to start with, what are baby psychics? Because I love that you use that term.
You know, it's funny because like that's one of the things that pisses people off.
Nuh-uh.
Yes, that word. People are like, you're infantilizing us. And I'm like, no, we have to start off somewhere, right? And that's what this is about. It's about people who are just beginning their journey into psychic development, exploring, you know, the unexplainable. Things have been happening. They don't know exactly what's happening. They're maybe overwhelmed by some of the stuff that's coming through. They don't know what to do. They don't have any control. And so they're like, please help. And I'm like, I'm here. Let me help you. So.
How'd you figure out that you're in tune with this stuff and then figured out that you have the capacity to help others? Because that's like a whole nother layer.
Yeah, it is. So I have always had experiences. I would say that I was born this way. My family, my parents are both ordained ministers, which is another kind of like, wait, what? But it actually is a family job. I have, you know, my uncle is an ordained minister. I have second cousins ordained ministers. One of my ancestors was a missionary who died on the mission field.
Wow.
And I would say that it's hereditary to be more sensitive, just like, you know, Michael Phelps is hereditary, you know, he has some genetic predisposition, you know, Kobe Bryant, genetic predisposition to certain things. The same can be said for like artistic talent, for singing, all of those things. And it used to be that the only socially acceptable way to connect with spirit was through the church. And now we have more possibilities. And so when I was a child, I would have these experiences that I couldn't really explain. And I was like, I don't want to say this out loud because I was growing up in a mainline church. There wasn't, you know, these are not the people who talk and, you know, speak in tongues. It's no slain in the spirit business. These are people who are pretty normal in a lot of ways. Like they're not really one way or the other. They're just kind of middle of the road. And so I didn't have language to talk about these experiences except for biblical prophets, which is like, that's weird. You know, that's very strange. But then as time went on, there's certain moments where you have, if somebody is psychically sensitive, it follows a very specific trajectory. So if you're born psychically sensitive around 7, you'll have an experience where you'll encounter somebody like maybe Buddha or Jesus or Shiva, someone who's culturally relevant to your upbringing. And you'll have this sort of like initiation. That's very common. Then around 12, puberty, you'll have another jump in abilities, usually around clairsentience. And then like as you go through your teenage years, it'll be a little bit more. early adulthood, another jump. And then if you're a woman, and or have a functioning uterus, especially, it's not always the case, but there's definitely an increase of psychic sensitivity with pregnancy.
Oh, interesting.
It can actually turn on a lot of people's abilities if they become pregnant. But it's also just the womb in general is a very psychically connected. I mean, you're literally walking around with a spirit portal. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. So what happened with me, even though I was having these experiences, I didn't really, I'm a Zennial. So the internet and all this spiritual stuff, like it wasn't available like it is now. So I had to cobble stuff together. I had to figure out what was going on. I'm like, am I crazy? Am I imagining it? I do have a vivid imagination, which is also something that's connected to that. So I was like, I don't know. And then finally I had this sort of low point in my life where I decided I needed to start figuring myself out, reevaluate who I was, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to spend my time. And I started meditating. Which is
powerful thing to start
right
doing.
Yeah, this is like, if you want to have psychic abilities and you don't have them, meditate and it'll happen eventually. So I was meditating and I was working on I was creating an interfaith devotional, writing and publishing this. And so I was reading holy scriptures from a bunch of different traditions. And it got me into this like week-long trance. And I was doing chakra meditations, and it was just like, boom, you're like, you're going to have this, everything's going to be turned on, open the floodgates. How about some psychic psychosis? That'll be fun. I don't recommend that. It's not how I would choose to have a reawakening, and I wouldn't recommend that floodgate approach. However, the trial by fire did help me figure out a lot of the techniques that I teach my clients now. So because I had this really intense experience where it's like those moments, like if you look at like one of those scenes from one of the older Spider-Man movies where he just got bitten and he's like, or like Superman where he gets like all of his stuff, or like Bella Swan when she gets all of her vampire stuff. It's those kinds of moments where like everything's turned up to 11 and you're like, oh shit, like what am I going to do with this? So you're walking around down the street and you're getting, think about twice the amount of senses. And that's what it's like. And it's exhausting and it's overwhelming and it's incredibly confusing until you figure out what you're supposed to do to like tone it down and focus it. And once you can tone it down and focus it, it's like amazing. And it's like, I mean, why wouldn't everybody want this? So I am a natural teacher, and recognizing that this was happening for myself and learning how to navigate it for myself, I started slowly offering readings. But what I found was a lot of the people who were coming to me were asking for help. And it wasn't help with my finances or help with my relationship. It was, I think I might be like you, but I don't know what to do. And I was like, oh. And I started looking around, and there's actually, I can't recommend a lot of teachers.
Yeah.
And part of it is because there is such the Wild West. And so a big reason of why I do what I do is to put out good, clear information that is as true as I can determine. I mean, if I'm always willing, like if I've done, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'll revise. But for the most part, I'm very like, okay, this is as much as I can see. This is how it is. And so that gives people.
He'll do that occasionally. Don't worry about it.
It's cool. That gives people space for a difference of belief, while also pursuing things that are safe and fun and open up their abilities in a way that is best for them.
Mm. Talk to me about what kinds of gifts you noticed yourself, because it's probably a pretty broad subject matter. Some people may be like, what are you talking about? Your senses doubled. Can you, think back to an experience that you had and you're like, oh, this is a gift, and what that gift is and what that kind of felt like for you?
Yeah. So everybody has, when you're starting out with your psychic sensitivities, people generally have, just like we use dominant senses, we have dominant psychic senses. So, and typically, even if you have all of them turned on, you'll have a dominant sense, and then I would say like a secondary or supporting sense. And those are the two that like present themselves first. And then as you develop, you get all of them. So for me, I'm clairvoyant dominant. Every psychic experience I have, I would say like 95%. I'm just pulling that number out of my butt. But about that high percentage is some kind of visual something. Mm-hmm. There's some visual aspect, whether I'm seeing it with my eyes or whether I'm seeing it with my third eye. And then after that would be clairsentience, would be my secondary. And a lot of people, clairvoyance, so clairvoyance is clear seeing, clairsentience is clear feeling, but I would define that a little more specifically. I would say that that's any sensation in the body. A lot of people, they think, oh, that's like empathic stuff, and that confuses the idea, because really we experience our emotions by being in touch with our bodies. Mm-hmm. And so clairsentience is really physical sensations. That's what, when we're talking about a gut feeling, we're talking about clairsentience. You talk about like goosebumps, clairsentience, and it's also the most socially acceptable one. So a lot of people early on will have clairsentience show up. And so I'm trying to think of like a good example where I would experience that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the first experience that I remember consciously that was definitely the psychic thing was when I was around 7, and I experienced Jesus, because again, like I grew up with ministers as parents. Mm-hmm. So of course it would be in that. And I kind of saw like a little bit of an outline, but I felt love. I felt like this profound, full body, ecstatic, divine love. And I was like, oh, this is definitely that dude. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, if this is like how it's supposed to be, like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I was, and so I was like, oh, that's great. And then the second experience that I remember as a child was my godmother passed away from cancer. And she started visiting me. She would check in on me,
in
every
dreams?
so often. No.
Oh.
When I was awake.
Wow.
Usually when I was in bed, because like when you're drifting off to sleep, your consciousness is a little more open. Mm-hmm. And so at the time I thought, I'm just imagining this. This can't be real. But as I got older, I was like, no, I think this is really my godmother. And it was very reassuring to have her presence. She was a very calm, she worked with autistic adults. Mm. She had the patience of an angel. Sensitive soul. She was just a wonderful human being that did wonderful, good things in the world. And it was just a very reassuring and soothing presence. And so there was more of a visual aspect with her, even though there was also that feeling. I've always had, and this is something very common with people who are psychically sensitive, and especially with clairvoyance, will have intense dreams. And so I've always had intense dreams, but I also learned how to lucid dream from a young age. And so I had a lot of dreams that were are they real or are they not? Are there pieces that are real? And then I would also have deja vu a lot, which, yes, there's a scientific explanation for deja vu, but just because there's science behind it doesn't mean that spirit doesn't manipulate it. So for me, I started noticing that the deja vu were like signposts. And then there were also all these moments from dreams that were coming true. And it became from about 14 to 18, there was a lot that was happening that I was just like regularly. And it was just like, okay, can I talk to people about this? I don't know. I kept it mostly to myself at that time. But yeah. So a lot of different things. And I didn't have the words. Like I said earlier, I didn't have the words. So I didn't know, like, oh, this is clairvoyance. Oh, this is clairsentience. And my definition of clairsentience is still not broadly used.
I was going to ask.
Even though there are the resources that are the most trustworthy use that definition. And some of those, I think the person who's in charge of like the World Psychic Organization, I don't remember exactly what the title of the organization is, but it's like the World Psychic Organization, something like that, Psychic World, I don't know. The president of them uses definitions that are aligned with what I do. So there are some out there. But yeah, so it took me a while to find the words and to kind of figure out all the different moving pieces to where I am today.
It's good. I think these are pretty universal experiences for people, even if they don't have the language, don't have the definitions.
Yes.
You know, everybody has had a deja vu experience, whether there's there's science behind meditation. So like there's a lot of crossover, and I actually appreciate the crossover as someone who tends to be like a little more rational and try to exist in the space where I can have my beliefs, but have them make sense as well.
Yeah.
And I've had, some of my own. I don't know that I'm that powerful, or maybe there's like room for me to grow more powerful. I did have an experience just a few months ago that like freaked me out to the point of crying, where I had a dream that felt lucid, but just I'm not normally remembering my dreams in the morning.
Okay.
And this one was very intense, and I remembered it, and I walked out into this room, and I saw my roommate, and I said to her a sentence that has never come out of my mouth in my entire life. I had a dream that felt like a premonition. I'm just not the person that would like say something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then later that day, I ran into the woman who I dreamed about, who does not live in Los Angeles. I did not know she was in town. And it like brought me to tears that I ran into her that day after dreaming about her like that. I just couldn't, I was like, what is happening? And it was coming to me at a time when I was just on what I would almost call like a kick of synchronicities. Like it was just one thing after the next. I would turn on the TV, and like the first thing on the screen was like a message that was related to something I had been thinking about. And I've gone through my own kind of friction with it, because I do like to try to find the rationale in it, but also like something else is going on.
Yeah.
Do you think there's different levels that people, I guess you were like saying this earlier, where some people are just really born with it, and it's more intense if you're coming up in like a very highly spiritual family, and there's different. I also I'm going on a tangent here, but did you see the video of that young boy in the hospital bed that was crying because he saw Jesus?
No, I haven't seen it.
You must watch it. You must.
Send me the link.
I will send you the link. It's one of those things where like, I mean, I grew up Jewish, so I'm not even in that faith, but like what you were saying, it's really in accordance with that, where he's in a hospital bed and he doesn't really hear. It seems like he's awake, but like mentally he's just completely somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And he's like talking to Jesus and talking to his father who had passed and his grandpa. And like, there's really no way to watch this video without getting goosebumps and being brought to tears, because like this child is going through something.
Yeah.
It's not a hallucination.
No.
It's not meds. It's like that child is having a spiritual experience regardless of what sense it may or may not make. So I guess what I'm leading to with that is it inherently more powerful in some people, or can other people that have even just like a semblance of it grow it to be more powerful?
So there's two things going. Well, there's three things. One is that to be human is to be psychic.
Mic drop.
Yeah, pretty much. And then two is, just like basketball, anybody can learn how to play, but like everybody doesn't have two arms and two legs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And everybody's not going to be Kobe Bryant, and that's fine. That is good and correct. And then three is when you're close to death, you're close to death.
Oh, you're
you know
right at the veil.
Exactly. And actually, it's so prevalent that in hospice textbooks,
wow,
they include information about those experiences because it's so predictable at the end of life. There are so many unexplainable, wild experiences. When my mother the last job she had before she retired, she was a hospice chaplain. And so she would have wild experiences. And these would be things that the patient would experience, but also sometimes the greater family would experience. Like when the person passes in one room, suddenly the whole house smells like lavender. There's no lavender in the house. It just happened to be a flower that person loved, or a bird that wouldn't typically be there in that season just showing up, and that happens to be the bird that has some special meaning to the family. There's all of those kinds of synchronicities. It's wild. And a lot of times too, when someone we love passes, even a pet, they visit us.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will have experiences like that. So even if you're not crossing the veil, if the veil is close, you'll have some more experiences. But I want to go back to this question of like, can you train it up? Yes, absolutely. And it's it's like any skill, right? Or any sense. You can think about it like working out. So if you're working out, some people, you build muscle more easily, whatever. But anybody can go to the gym and lift weights. Anybody can get stronger. Are you going to be like a power lifter or like win, a bodybuilding competition? Maybe not, but does everybody need to? No. You may just want to have enough of a sense that you can talk to your grandma every so often. You want to get like that secret recipe or something. You could.
Wow.
Maybe not, but maybe. Or maybe you just want to like get in contact with your pet that just passed away, and that just helps soothe your grief, which is one of the best things about being psychic, is it transforms the way you experience grief.
That's huge.
It's huge. Like the sadness that people feel about death, of course it's terrible when someone passes because their body's not here anymore and you can't give them a hug and you can't listen to their laughter. But can you imagine what it's like when literally you just think about the person and there they are and you can have a conversation with them and they can reassure you about whatever. It's so good. I had my appendix removed. I got appendicitis late. Like I think I was 40 when this happened.
Wow.
I know, crazy. So I'm sitting in the hospital bed because they do it differently. They don't automatically send you into surgery. And I had my mothers show up. I call them my three mothers because after each one of them passed, they kind of joined. So I have my godmother that comes to reassure me when I'm sick or when I'm having trauma. And then I have my husband's grandmother. And then I have my grandmother. And the three of them are just like a presence. And I feel them very powerfully, like whenever. And when I was I'm sitting in the hospital, I'm like, am I going to have surgery? They're giving me antibiotics so that can calm down. But they're like, we can either cut it out or give you antibiotics and maybe it won't come back. And I'm like, let's just cut it out. So I'm just like, I'm waiting and I'm like having, you're not in your bed and it's like just hard. And it was just like this like soothing, wonderful thing of these people who have been gone some as many as 20 years plus, but it doesn't matter because I can talk to them at any time and they're there and they're giving me reassurances. And that is a powerful thing. You know, that's one of the, like, I would say that psychic ability is real magic. And that's being able to talk to people that are no longer physically here is one of those really great magical benefits.
You have to be open to the type of language that they speak in, because it's probably not going to be English. It's probably going to be, oh, I'm going to accidentally flip to a page in a book and something will be there. Like, you probably then have to be more open to receiving however they communicate, if it's not just straight up. Like, I had my dog before him who passed come to me, and we can get into the conversation of psychedelics and whether you're pro or anti, or how that can actually as a little bit of a portal push sometimes. And yeah, I had a very intense experience on mushrooms where my dog came to me, was laying on my chest, was comforting me as I was like stepping through all these different dimensions, and it felt really good. It didn't scare me at all. It was like nice having her with me. Yeah. And I wish I could contact her without mushrooms.
You can.
Yeah.
Here, I'm just, you can. It's possible. Yeah, I mean, I do think that for some people to open the door, you need a trigger mechanism.
Because it's so foreign.
There's
to some of us.
And there's, no, this is a thing. And there's all kinds of reasons why it's like, whoa. A lot of it is cultural, but there can also be like, you got locks in here. You gotta, and like someone like me, I can actually go into somebody's spirit and open doors. I do that for clients periodically, or I'll like burn away patterns or whatever, like and the transformation is like the next 24 hours you'll be like, holy shit, like what just happened? But that's the magic part, right? So you could have someone like me do that for you. You could have a traumatic experience, which let's not do that. If we could get away with that, we don't want to do that. Like a near-death experience, some kind of abuse, especially in childhood, can turn things on, in particular with clairsentience, and then that can kind of transmute into the other senses. But you can also, and as I said before, pregnancy can also function that way. If you have a penis, it's not going to work out. Sorry. But the other thing is drugs. And in particular, hallucinogenics. I am not a big fan of drugs for spiritual connection in a prolonged way.
Agreed.
I think some people, and this is a danger with all kinds of things in spiritual spaces, people get attached to the tool and they start putting the emphasis on the tool as opposed to the self. So I'm like kind of a hard ass in that I'm like, you need to just start meditating every day, and you need to like make a consistent practice with it, because if you meditate every day, you will turn things on. It's inevitable. It will happen. Now, are you going to be walking around like I am? I don't know. Maybe. Eventually, maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll just, turn on your intuition enough that you start manifesting like crazy, which is a side effect of psychic ability. So, if you want to probably mushrooms are probably the safest. I'm like I would tend towards plants rather than synthetics. LSD, I'm like, it's a little much. And you're really not looking for a lot. You're looking for just a little boost, right? So psilocybin is a good way to do that. But you could also, I know some people, and this has to do with consciousnesses. It has to do with states of consciousness, because that's why meditation works, is you're altering your brain waves so that you can open yourself up to everything, right? So if you are altering your consciousness with anything, you could use alcohol.
Yeah.
When I was early on in my journey, like very soon after my reawakening, this was when I was still drinking alcohol. I don't I have a lot of social handicaps at this point in that I don't drink coffee or alcohol or eat chocolate. But that's another thing. So I had a glass of wine and I was going up the stairs to go to bed, and this portal opened up in front of me and this spirit came, and I was literally like just a few steps from the hallway, and it's this full immersive vision, and I'm like, what the guys, like, I need to be able to go upstairs. You're gonna cause me to fall and injure myself. We can't be doing that. So she disappeared. I don't know what she wanted. I don't know what was going on. I was just like, look, no. And that's one of the things that is another question for a lot of people. And this is one of those things that causes blocks, is people are afraid, like, what will happen? What if I have a drink and then, or like have some chamomile tea or something, which can also, anything that has a sedating effect alters your consciousness, opens you up, unless you have stuff in place, boundaries, spiritual boundaries. If you have spiritual boundaries, it doesn't matter how much you do, it's not gonna cause a problem. But most baby psychics don't have those yet. So that's one of the things that we work on. So the nice thing about spirit is it operates by rules. You get to set the rules. You decide what those are. You're in control. The moment you like give your power away, all bets are off. I can't help you.
I like that. You just touched on a few things that are really fascinating to me. One is that I agree of not, I think it's like a little dangerous to hold any substance on a pedestal, really. And to me, the purpose is, if there's, I think, blocks that have to do with disbelief, that those are maybe good mechanisms to show you that you should believe, because kind of when you take them, you're forced to.
There's no
certain
getting
ones
around
at certain
it.
levels. Yeah, it's coming to you whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
But I like that then we can get into the conversation of what do you do with the fear that's going to be there, because tapping into these abilities more, maybe experiences that you've had that you can speak to, it sounds like it could be scary. So how do you get past that?
So you can't tell from looking at me right now, but I'm a little goth.
It's like okay. I am too, and I would probably say same. Then again, my ears are gauged, so maybe it's.
I don't know. I mean, like that's kind of like common these days.
Yeah.
But like, like half my wardrobe, like if you go into my closet, like half of it's black.
Same.
I have so many different fishnets.
You're in the right place.
Yes. I knew I liked you. No, but I would say that there's as many different ways of being psychic as there are humans. And the reason is that spirit reflects who you are back to you. So what you see or feel or sense will be a reflection of what you're capable of experiencing and what you want to experience. There's a little nuance there. So for me, I'm a little Guillermo del Toro. It's definitely, I didn't even realize that it was creepy to people, some of the things that I've seen and experienced. But like I've relayed some of the experiences and people are like, oh my God.
But it didn't creep you out as you were experiencing it.
No. So there was one. I don't. Can I do this? There was one experience which this was pretty. This was like, actually, there are two that are more intense, and they were relatively close together. I don't remember exactly what was going on at the time. Usually, when I have intense visions around the same time period, there's something happening, whether it's political or social. Something is going on. So the first one was, remember this is a vision and everything is symbolic. And that's the other thing. Like when you know as a clairvoyance understand that everything is symbolic. It's not actually happening. It's just symbols. So once you're like, okay, this isn't actually happening, it like separates it a little bit. And so then it's not as scary. But this was crazy. I was dead, but I was aware in my body, and I was lying on a table, and I saw my guides and some other spirits standing around me, but they transformed kind of like the spirits in like Beetlejuice might transform, and then they started picking apart my body and eating me. That was definitely one of the crazier visions. And I don't, at the time, I'm not really sure how I interpreted it, but now I would say that it has to do with the connection between spirit and the body, and how the body feeds the spirit, which is kind of interesting. The second one, which was also creepy, but creepy in a different way, was I was walking in, I think it was in a cemetery, which cemeteries for psychics are like great. They're quiet, they're soothing, everything is clean. It's like not a problem for us to be. We like being in cemeteries. So that part wasn't creepy. The dirt was fresh at this one grave, and I remember like I think I was barefoot, and I was like feeling the dirt with my feet, and I just felt like I had to dig in the dirt, and there was like a white mask, almost like a kabuki kind of mask, and then I think the eyes flashed open, and then it reached up and pulled me into the ground and took me into this series of caverns. And there were all of these similar creatures with these kabuki masks. And it was very anime style, like kind of Guillermo del Toro baddies. But they weren't actually bad. They were just creatures serving the purpose. And in the end, and this wasn't just a vision. This was actually... there was a purpose to this. Sometimes what happens in spirit is to change the spirit. And when you change the spirit, you change the body. So body material. What happened? Like, they go back and forth. So they took me to a room that had a cocoon, and they put me in a cocoon, and I went through my goo process and then came out new. So it was both like, whoa, really intense, but there was a really intense purpose behind what was happening. So those are like, what?
Yeah.
You know, like, this is crazy. And when you say these things out loud to people are like, like, I don't know about you. And I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't know about me. like, it's probably
ready.
Fine. Like I show up and you think I'm a normie, but I'm not. and so I don't share that stuff with like just the average person. And also it can be really reassuring to someone who's starting out, being like, is this like normal? Like, is what I'm seeing or sensing or feeling, is this actually like okay? And I'm like, oh, girl, I could tell you some things. And it's really nice to be able to offer that reassurance to people.
Of course, because I could imagine that the fear of it is so intense, especially if you're like, hey, if we start working on this together and I start seeing dead people, I start having visions of, you know, my body being pulled apart. I'm not ready for that. I'm just trying to get better at manifesting. Like, that's not why I got here.
And most people are not going to have.
Yeah.
Like that's a very, and that's exceptional even in my history with this stuff. Again, you have to remember that what you see or feel or sense is going to reflect you. So like, there's some psychics, they only deal with angels. I am not that person. You know, like, yes, I see all kinds of things, but, and I experience all kinds of beings, but I am not the love and light person. I'm not like 100% shadow, but, you know, like we're operating in a gray zone here, you know, like if you can't handle the dark, you're probably not supposed to be talking to me, which is fine. Like, there's somebody else for you, but I am not the one.
But then you're kind of the perfect person for what we're talking about, which is like getting past that fear, because it sounds like you just don't even really have it.
Yeah, no, I don't. This is kind of like, it's kind of a weird way to describe it, but honestly, this is the best way to explain it, is when I'm in spirit, I am walking around like I'm a goddess, like actually that level of power. If we talk about if a deity is someone who can manipulate and change reality in any way, that's how I function in spirit. There's nothing that I can't do. There's nothing that I can't change. I mean, yeah, could something hurt me? Totally. I'm not big G. I'm a little G. if we're talking about, in spirit, how I function. And so if I'm walking around with that kind of power, why would I be afraid of anything? I'm not. I mean, I actually just I just posted last week one of my newsletters about about dark things, shadow things, because whenever I talk about those things, people are like, because my perspective on that stuff is a little bit different. I would never say that there aren't shadow things out there. That would be a lie. However, there's no reason to be afraid of them because they function like a vampire. They only hurt you if you let them in, so don't. Why would you do that? And then there's also the fact that you are in complete control. If you don't want to see dead people, you never have to. Not once. Never.
Yeah.
You get to choose how you want it to be. If you don't want to see your grandma, you don't have to. Maybe she was awful. I don't know. That's fine. It's fine. No judgment. If you do want to see, you want to, like, I have clients who want all kinds of wide variety of things. I have a client, they're a repeat client, and they have a large family property, and it was for property cleansing. And she wanted me to help basically broker relationships between her family and whatever was there. And this was a very active property, so there was a lot going on. And I just thought that was great because it was like, she was like, yeah, no, I'm okay with whatever. And I was like, you are not the normal person, but I love it. Like, and then I've had other people who they're like, this is an awful, like something awful is going on here. Can you please get rid of it? And I'm like, okay, I feel you. Like, let's fix this, whatever it is. But one of the things that I did, and I learned how to do this pretty early on, is, so have you seen K-pop Demon Hunters?
No.
Oh, girl. Okay. There's a concept in East Asia that it's not all demons, but demons become demons by the choices that they make, by the shame that they feel, that kind of thing. And I would say that shadow beings choose, and we choose, right? We have the capacity to be in heaven or hell at any given moment.
Thank God.
Right?
Willpower is a part of this.
And you have complete control, and there's things that are delightful every moment. Like, for example, like, I really like the way that this feels right now. I really am enjoying talking with you, and I can focus on those lovely feelings. And I love your dog. and I can focus on those moments, and suddenly that's just delightful, right? It's delightful. Or I could be like, oh, my, like, this part is like maybe a little uncomfortable or something, or like maybe like my knee's a little stiff. I don't know. I could focus on that, and then I could be in hell. Why would you choose that? But people choose it every day, which is bizarre. But hey, and spirit does that too. And if you keep on choosing the bad stuff over and over,
it's reinforcement,
and over, it becomes very difficult to get out. So when I was very early on in my journey, there's a place in spirit where I would be, and I would look out, and these shadow beings would come, and I would shoot them with divine love, with divine light. And the ones who were ready would transform, and they would move from shadow into light, and they would be super grateful and like wonderful. And they just needed that boost, you know, like sometimes you just need someone to pull you out, you know, and that's true for people, right? Like sometimes it's just you're so far in the hole, you just need a rope, and then you actually do want the rope. And so you throw it to them, you help them out. They're good. And then others are like, no, I really want to stay in this pit. you're like, okay, see ya. And it's fine. You know, we get to choose. So why would I be afraid of that? Like, they can't hurt me. And they can't hurt you either.
Yeah, as long as you know that this is the significance of really understanding the choice that's in it. Because I think operating from a fear place and a place of I don't have any control over this, it's going to be what it's going to be, even though perhaps that mindset, it's going to be negative, is the thing that then pulls it in.
Yeah.
I want to ask how you derive meaning from these types of visions that you're having, from synchronicities. How do you make sense of them?
I'm going to tell you another story. So I was feeling a little lost and frustrated, and I was like wanting some big stuff to manifest, and I was driving. My oldest takes golf classes. So I was driving back to the golf course from getting some boba tea. I love boba tea. And I was like, I need a sign. I need something that's like drop a piano on my head sign right now about this stuff so I can keep going. I parked, and there was a California towhee, which is a type of bird. It's generally a ground bird, and it started pecking at my side mirror. It pecked at the side mirror 10 times. I was like, holy shit. So I look up this bird, and it's all about like resilience and all this stuff. And then like it's like pecking, it sat down. Peck, 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 sat down. Peck, 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 sat down, flew off. And then I looked at the mirror, and I was like, objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Well, that was a nail on the head, wasn't it? Like, that's how fast you can get some signs, and that's how clear they can be. But I was very specific in my request, right? So I was asking for, I need this to be obvious, you know, and you can do that. You have control. That's the theme. You have control. But sometimes they're not as clear. Sometimes you have to like kind of, I would say if you have tuned into your intuition, and this is something that I would say that it's tricky for some people because we have so divorced ourselves from our body and the senses of our body, of really knowing what our body is telling us. And so, and a lot of spiritual influencers will be like, you need to separate from the body. Stop listening to the body. I'm like, the fuck you do?
That's crazy.
That's
all I
stupid.
talk about is being more embodied. That's
yes.
Like so much of.
And fortunately, recently, like somatic stuff has become really popular, and thank God for that, because that has been really helpful. Because it started to put words and practices into these things. And I'm like, your body's an amazing tool in your psychic development. You need to get more in tune with that, because it's like a radio for you. You want to figure out how things show up in your body so that when you receive a sign, you can be like, this is for sure a sign, as opposed to I'm just really excited about 3 numbers strung together. Which you have to learn how it feels when you're like, I'm really hopeful and desiring and like really want this to be a thing, versus this is actually a thing. And it will feel differently. It will feel differently in your body. Now, is it going to feel the same for me as it is for you? No. Like the way it works for you is going to be different. So you have to figure out how it's going to work for you. And for your roommate or for, you know, your mom or whoever, it's going to be different for them. Like, I would never, ever say that it's going to be the same for two people, because that is arrogant and presumptive, because we're experiencing our bodies differently. So how we experience those things from moment to moment, and over time it may change too. And that is all good and correct. So learning to pay attention to your environment. If you want to have specific signs, like let's say you're like, I love butterflies. I want to see butterflies. Of course it is.
You knew.
Well, I knew, but I didn't know. This is how my life works. So let's say that you do, you know, love butterflies. You want to see butterflies. You want a butterfly when? What? When would you like to see a butterfly?
You know, it's just so funny that you're using it, like, really just.
It's not funny, sweetie. This is how this game works.
I know, it's crazy. And I'm even being open and even inviting you to come here and talk to this.
Are
and
you
yet
like,
you're doing
oh my
it,
God.
and I'm like, okay.
I can't guarantee that I won't make you a little more uncomfortable.
I'm open to receiving the uncomfortableness.
That's good because
it's why we're here. It's why we're here today.
Good.
I look to butterflies as a sign that manifestations are coming, that things that I want are in the works, right?
Okay.
And not only is it really exciting to actually see real butterflies, but I love if there's one graffitied on the side of a building.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? If someone's wearing a butterfly necklace, I'm like, yeah, it counts. It counts.
Oh, it should.
It definitely does. Because sometimes I see them like that and I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting. I had gone up to Big Sur for my birthday last month.
Nice.
And my friend had suggested a couple of different hotels. I didn't want to choose. I wanted her to choose. One of the options was called the Butterfly Inn or the Butterfly Grove Inn, and she picked it. And I was like, I knew it. That's what I wanted you to pick, and you picked it. So stuff like that. And then when I take him on our little afternoon walks, there is like an area of the block behind here that is just like festered with butterfly. Like, there's so many butterflies, you cannot even believe it. It's crazy. And it just, I'm always like, no, but they're coming out extra for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's why that stuff works. Anything that is liminal is easy for spirit to manipulate. So, and pure things are easy for spirit to manipulate.
So is that like numbers, like addresses when people see?
So specifically, so when I say liminal, I'm talking about anything that's in between. So air is an in-between kind of element. Anything that flies lives in air or operates in the air. So a lot of insects fall into that. So if dragonflies are often signs, and this is also like a historical ancient thing. You'll find that there's a tradition of butterflies, moths, bees, and dragonflies in particular that are messengers from spirit. And like
birds too, right?
Absolutely birds. There's a tradition with crows in particular being psychopomps, which is a being, or humans can function this way, but usually you're talking about deities or an animal spirit that leads spirits to across the veil. But they can also go back and forth, right? And crows in particular, I love crows. Crows in particular are a mixture of night and day because they're solid black, but they're diurnal. That means they're awake during the day. So anything that is in between is going to be more receptive to spirit, more and more easily manipulated by spirit. So there's also states of being for people that can make you more open. And then there's also places that can cause more opening. So thresholds are a place where, like, so if you're going through a door, and gateways, also bridges, because you're in between places. So all of these kinds of and then of course, like when you're near death, right? This is another in-between place. So those kinds of things. So those are easy to manipulate by spirit. Nature is the purity aspect, right? Animals, there's no art in that, no artifice. They're not lying. They're just themselves. And so they're receptive to spirit, and they can be messengers for spirit. And then plants as well, right? So those are all places where you can find more spirit. Communication is another thing, right? Especially now we have Wi-Fi. Where's it going through? The air, right? We have all these frequencies that are going through the air. So, that's why, you get something over the radio. The song suddenly comes on and it's like the perfect lyric that your friend would say. And then all of a sudden they call you, please.
I love when that stuff happens.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So this is just, it's very natural for those kinds of things. So it's a lot easier than to get those kinds of things as signs. That's why a lot of times people they don't realize this, but this is why feathers work. Like that's one of the popular things. And then there's also like certain birds tend to be, for whatever reason, that we naturally gravitate towards them, but we don't even understand why we do.
Yeah, this explanation of the going through the air, it's really like locking a lot of things in for me and making sense of a lot of things, because I don't know why I picked butterflies. I don't know why that was like the thing, but I've known of people in my life who react that way for ladybugs or certain birds.
Ladybugs, yeah.
You're right. It is always some kind of air nature thing.
Well, and with butterflies in particular, I mean, this is a classic rebirth symbol, right? You have the caterpillar, and then you have the chrysalis, and then you have the new life. So this is also like kind of life, death, and rebirth, which is another natural kind of thing. So it makes sense, especially with something like a butterfly or a moth, to kind of have that. So it's definitely, I would say, a natural thing to gravitate towards those. So,
What kinds of tools do you like that are not of nature that you put stock in, like, i.e., sage or crystals, or what kinds of tools that may or may not be like man-made are you into?
So, you don't need anything ever if you don't want to use anything ever. But a lot of people like it, especially at the beginning, because if you don't know or you feel like doubt, which is actually this is the worst thing for psychics, is doubt. This is what will like turn you off and get things muddled. So especially at the beginning, it's nice to have a physical thing that you kind of use as a crutch, like training wheels, really.
Sure.
And then you graduate and you're like, I don't really need this anymore. So oracle cards, tarot cards can be useful, and they're actually useful in multiple ways because they teach you how to read symbols. So that's when you're building your understanding of interpretation, what the things mean, especially if you look at it not just from the traditional meaning of like a tarot card, because they have set meanings that you can rely on. You can look up, there's like 1,000,001 different websites, but a lot of people use like Biddy Tarot is one of the popular ones that I think has really solid explanations for each card. So if you're like, I don't know what this means, you can always go to that website. But there's also the symbols that the artist has placed on the cards, because there's lots of different, you can find a tarot deck of anything, you can find a tarot deck of Play-Doh creatures. I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but maybe, maybe there's a Gumby. Oh my God, that would be amazing if there was a Gumby one. Okay. Anyway, so you have these cards, you have these symbols, everything has meaning. Colors have meaning. Animals have meaning. Placement has meaning. Motion has meaning. And so you can look at it and you can have all of the experiences that you have referencing these things. But then there's also multiple layers of cultural meaning that you can build on that stuff. So interpretation can be a minefield, and it is definitely an art form, and it definitely takes practice. So using oracle cards and tarot cards, if you're wanting to build up your skills of interpretation, is fantastic. But you could also just watch shows or read books and just kind of interpret that, because that is not a skill that you need intuition for. That is something you can build doing anything, right? Which is helpful. I mean, this is dreams too. It's all of that. So so that's the benefit of cards. Crystals I like because everything has a spiritual signature. And crystals they hold the signature of their birth, just like we all do. And so they also hold the energy of whatever minerals are there. So they kind of lean one direction or another, and they can give you like a little boost. It's not something, again, I still use crystals? Sometimes, yeah. Like, I have some on. Like I never go. I feel naked if I don't have a ring on. But sometimes I just want to wear a little obsidian. Like just a little extra boost of like, do I trust my filter to work? Yes. Do I trust my goon squad that I go everywhere with? I have a goon squad, and they are amazing. But like sometimes I just want like a little bit more, because I know that like the conversation I'm going to be having is going to be a little more something like intense, or
conversation with a client, or the conversation with the
anybody.
Yeah.
Like it could be anybody. I have this amazing giant chunk of obsidian that has like, I would say it has big D energy. And I got it from an ancient, like a dormant, latent lava field. And it's like anytime that I want a little bit extra boost, and I'm like, hey, I have a section where I have my crystals. I'll be like, hey, does anybody want to like help me out? And I'll be like, and then like different ones will pop out, and I'll be like, okay. And then like if I feel like that one is like always ready to be like, yeah. But if I feel like I'm going to need a little bit of that like more protective sentry kind of vibe, then I'll like use that one. But I also am like friends with a lot of nature spirits, and sometimes they just like to give me gifts. And so like the earth is amazing. It's like so supportive. The energy of the planet is so like, if you give the earth anything, it's like, I'm going to give you more stuff. like it's just like, because that's just how the earth is. It's just super abundant and super loving. And so I'll be like, just send some like love over to like a land spirit, and the land spirit's like, hey, come over here. And there'll be this giant chunk of jasper just waiting for me.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're so nice. Or like a big like heart-shaped quartz. I literally have a piece of quartz that's in the shape of a heart, because that was a gift. So yeah, crystals can be great. And I've used, when I was starting out, I also used them to help focus meditation. Like when I was developing some of my abilities on like getting used to traveling around in spirit and focusing on different things, learning how to read. That can be really beneficial. Things like labradorite, or like, I love labradorite for that, but you could use amethyst. You can use anything really. It's just whatever you want. And you can also put energy into things. Like you don't have to just follow the interpretation that's online somewhere or in your encyclopedia of crystals. Like it's fine. I'm trying to think of like some other stuff. So cleansing, because you brought up sage. It doesn't need to be sage. There's lots of different herbs that would work, and that's really important because we want to be ethical in our use of herbs. So white sage is actually endangered.
Oh.
We don't want to, and Palo Santo is also it's in danger too. So we want to make sure that we're being responsible with our herbs. So you can use things like rosemary, you can use thyme, you can use rose. I mean, like there's a lot of different options, and the tradition of using smudging is, I mean, the word smudging comes from indigenous groups, but the tradition of using herbal smoke is actually pretty broad. So so there's a number of different shamanic things that use that, and there's reasons for that. There's actually, it can help with antifungal properties, antimicrobial properties, bacteria, all that stuff. So it's got a lot of benefits apart from just like cleaning the.
That was full circle. There's always some science that pokes its head in with the stuff.
Yes, it's all connected. So like if you like smoke, cool, fine, you can use that to cleanse. Smoke makes me like cough and have like no, we're not doing that. so I would never use that. But you could use people like to use lavender. You can do like a essential oils mixed with like distilled water. So it lasts, spray it around. Rose water is great for that. Lavender water is great for that. Or eucalyptus, anything you want, really. It's just, if you like it, that's fine. It's really about the intention you set. Again, you set the rules, you're in control, you can use whatever you want. So, some people like salt. You could just put on, you have a salt lamp, you could just put that on, that's fine. Like, you want to sprinkle it around, fine, you'll have to clean it up later, gross, but whatever. You have plants, you probably don't want to put salt all over it. I don't know, I'm not you, you could do whatever you want, But, so it's like, it's up to you. But cleansing is a good thing to do. I like to cleanse a space before I set up energetic fencing, which I recommend to people. That's one of the first things I teach clients to do. I'm like, okay, you need to set up you need to have your own personal bubble, and then you need to have something around any place where you're going to be for extended periods. So your home, your bedroom, especially, because that's actually, I do bedrooms and I do the greater home, because you're asleep and that's an altered state of consciousness. You're more open. A lot of stuff can come through in dreams. So it's just better to have like a little bit extra layer, right? Trying to think of other tools. Pendulums can work well if you just want like yes or no. And you don't have to have like a special pendulum. You could use your necklace. It's fine. You just have to set what yes, no, and maybe are, and then it'll work. And that's essentially like muscle testing. It functions in a similar way. So, yeah.
You mentioned protecting your bedroom. How so? Or say more on that.
So I recommend. Okay, so different psychic senses work differently. I have not heard a lot of people say what I say about shielding. I don't use the word shield, because I like to be very precise with my language. Shields are blocks.
It's okay.
Oh, he
hears
it.
The people in the hall.
Yeah. So shields are blocks, and they're solid, right? They get in the way. Oh. So they get in the way, so they're going to prevent you. They do work to keep things out, but they also keep you in.
Oh.
So if you're using a shield, especially with clairsentience, and that is the most common one for people, clairsentience can fester. There needs to be, clairsentience works best. You want to think of it like a river, right? The energy needs to flow. The emotional energy, the spiritual energy, it does best when it's flowing. If you have a shield, you're going to set up stagnation. And so you want to have a filter, which you can have with a river, right? You can filter. You want to keep the bad stuff in, but you want the good stuff to flow, and you want to be able to go out too. So every type of protection that I have people set up is a filtration type of protection. So bad stuff bounces off, good stuff flows in, you can reach out, nothing comes back with you. Perfect. And so you want to so you cleanse your home, your bedroom using whatever method you like. And then you set up your, and there's a few different ways you can set up the fencing, but like basically you're just visualizing the filter, the fencing. And you just set it and forget it, because we don't need to be reinforcing this every single day. Oh my God, that's exhausting. Yeah. There's so many people who are like, you have to set this up it's like, why is your stuff so weak? I don't know, but you should have something that's powerful. Why are you so weak? I don't know. I get really mad. I'm like, why would you deplete yourself with all like I've had clients come to me and they're like, I'm so exhausted. I forgot to send. I'm like, well, then you set up something that was really weak. Don't be doing that. You're strong. You're powerful. You can control the you set up the rules. So if you set it up so that it's weak, so you have to do it every day. Yeah, you're going to have to do it every day. I don't like that. So it's like when you think of it, then you reinforce it. That's it. It's a lot easier.
Amazing. Takeaways. It's up to us. We're in control.
Totally.
Be open-minded.
Yeah.
What am I missing? Don't be afraid of it. There's nothing to be afraid of, because you can tell things to not.
Yeah, you're in control.
You're in control.
You're in control. It goes back to the control. Control is important, and you are more powerful than you realize. Right? Which is kind of feeds back on the control thing. But yeah, and everybody's psychic, at least a little bit. We all have the wiring. So
I love it. We can all get better.
Yeah.
I'm going to say your name again and that thing's going to go off. But I'm going to do it anyway. Alexis Donkin, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people learn how to work with you? Yeah.
You can find me on alexisdonkin.com. And I'm also on TikTok, which is where you found me, and Instagram at alexis.donkin. And then I have a Substack as well, my newsletter, which you can find. It's links everywhere, but it's like alexisdonkin.substack.com or something. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.